guys. A diagnosis, which is something that I don't do here. And I really want to explain that. There was a really good post right now about SMA and not having the control. And one of the comments was getting in the proprioceptive reflexes. I've had a lot of different types of trainings, and reflex training is one of them. But I really wanted to take a moment and try a different way of showing you reflexes. First of all, just because someone's told you something, even if it's about your diagnosis, it's not that I'm going to say don't believe them, but be open to possibility. Graham taught me to be open to possibilities. They're like, oh, he's got autism, and I'm like, sick, vision, muscles, like, what am I doing with all of this? So one of these aspects that I'm teaching you, I really learned off of him. I mean, they did think he regressed so badly. First shot was muscular dystrophies. We were pretty dead set that it was SMA because he went from walking and talking to he couldn't even roll over. He lost all skills. I mean, it was total regression. He didn't go back to pre-suck reflexes that they call that with like near drownings, but it was pretty darn close. First of all, there's a misconception or these things called proprioceptive reflexes, which means, oh, I'm going to fall down, let me protect myself. Listen, nobody wants to fall down, and we don't organize to fall down. The reason you're here and starting to declare your child or have declared your child or yourself as special needs is because you are now falling. What goes on with movement and proprioceptive responses has to do where we are in space, right? That's the whole reason why I wrote the book, You Can't Get to Mars Without Me. What I have developed is science. I have 21 new theories of biological gravity. The scientific proof behind movement lesson and everything that I'm doing is just mounting. But at the same time, you're here to help your child, and that's what I was here to. I'm only here to help my child. So this is just a container of water. Now, this is where the difference between you and I and mass. No matter what I do, this water will find a horizon. This is what gravity does to mass. There will be a horizon. Now, if I let this go, it will fall, and it will fall perpendicularly to the earth. Just if I were to fall, I will go towards the earth, right? I'm not going to fall off into outer space. However, this is what I've been trying to teach you. We have an absolute horizon. Why? Because we have bones, and this is what I'm going to show you now, especially what comes into play with muscular dystrophy, SMA, but also with just how we all move, and even with cerebral palsy. When I move, I know where my horizon is like this visually, but in my body, the way my bones go around, they feel it. So now imagine this ping pong ball is my bone. Now this is still the only demonstration I can give you is mass to mass. This is a ping pong ball. It's not a living organism. It will not go away from this. However, no matter what I do, right, the ball will, in a sense, counter gravity and won't sink. What you look at is what you've been told to look at is a startle reflex. Is actually a very serious and necessary mechanism within our body. Now, we don't always startle. We shouldn't startle. The way it happens just typically is when I want to get up or do something or to respond or react. That movement will push down and see I get an opposing force. That's how I rise up. We've already have a Nobel Prize, and I can't remember their names. It's three people on how cells can collect oxygen. Although that's proven, what it is you have to start looking at the science as why the cells collect oxygen. And what it is for you to rise up. I'm not telling all my muscles right now. So if I'm like here, I'm not telling all my muscles to contract and get up. Now that's CP, or that's what we expect to happen with someone with SMA or muscular dystrophy or something like that, because we look at high tone and weak tone as the origin of movement. It's not. It's our skeletal system, and then into our fascia, into our muscles. They all interconnect. But this is what you have to organize. So if you think you're going for reflex integration and so forth, and there's many different people that have that, if they're not going after the functional movement, you can do reflexes to the cows come home. You will see some results, but you're not going to see the whole picture because you're not working on those transitional milestones. How do I believe I'm right? Because guess what? There's no reflexes in outer space. This is one of the reasons that it happens. Right? In outer space, no matter what, they can't push down on that. That's part of the equipment or coming out of the You Can't Get to Mars Without Me that needs to happen is to at least tease the brain that this mechanics happen. Now, if you're looking at, and I just have a wiffle ball to show you the math, we're looking at like SMA or muscular dystrophy, what happens is See, the buoyancy rates changed. So even though this still floats, because there's, let's say, maybe some air in the top of that, it hasn't completely, or because of the product. But do you see now how this person's absolute horizon is different than this person's? So the first movements that are supposed to happen when you're born is the parietal bones they hit gravity and they go out. But now if I work with this guy, look at how he wants to go away from me. So do you see how the organization of the orange ball wants to succumb to gravity? Now, this living organism for biology, we discuss it in the book, but basically, if I were in water and I'm still alive, I am going to have some mechanisms of float. If death has occurred or is occurring in my system, I will sink. The second I'm in water and I do die, I will sink. So there's a living biology for buoyancy or mass ratio that you can discuss here versus mass is buoyancy. Right now, science has only shown you that there's so much air in this ping pong ball and there's so little air in this ping pong ball, and that's where you're going to have the discrepancy. But see, I do this with balloons and training and so forth. But if I touch this wants to go away from me. And this is where I try and teach you tonus when you're working with your touch in the trainings, because you shouldn't touch a system or work with a system that wants to go away from you, no matter. So now I can start filling this up with more balls. I can have my SMA balls and my regular balls, and some might even, but see, look at that. Look at that hit, right? This is a big thing that I'm working on now. But see how, again, just the hit of the balls or that. Do you see how some want to join in? And look at how much the others go away. So this is where, when you're telling me a child has startle reflexes, no, the organization within this. So when there's a movement, look at that. That's not a reflex. That's gravity in movement. Whether you have cancer, it's going to respond like this. One of the biggest problems with SMA, even though you have Spinraza, and now again, see how my horizon has to go around each individual, right? And that's what happens in a mass. So when you have a child even with CP that has a high startle reflex, what it is they want to get up. And that mechanics that they're trying to do to get that buoyancy again is there. But at the same time, it's an over response. Why? Because it's trying really hard. So when we go back to a natural buoyancy, right? So when you're looking at my hand, that's what happens. I'm not muscle up. There's very little muscles in the hand. I just have such a relationship with gravity that this movement in all direction, especially with my right hand over my left, if you're going to move and your balls all want to go down, all the amount of strength in the world is not going to fix the problem. What you have to do, and that's where movement lesson is so essential, is because we're working with these principles within the body, within that person I'm working on. Just like walking doesn't happen from the floor. Again, this is what your pelvis should be doing, right? But if you suddenly even got a hit of anesthesia, let me tell you, your system is confused. You know how hard it is to get out of bed right when you've had surgery? That's the heaviness I'm talking about, those drug interactions. It's like, I can't get out of bed. Well, until you walk around the station twice, you're not going home. You be a person with Parkinsons and you've got stuff, right? Does this look like an essential tremor? Look at when the tremor is happening, how much of those balls going away. So when I go in and they say, oh, dancing is really good for Parkinson's. What's dancing? Rotation. Look at the difference when I do that. Do you see how, again, the symmetry that can happen with the inside movements of the body? That's what you're after. So with movement lesson, that's what I'm here to play. The way that person is organizing the movement. So even though my son is still completely hypotonic and, quote, has autism and all that, his system works like this more and more every day versus growing up and going in where these deviations start becoming more and more. And you know what I mean? And that's where, if you have low tone or high tone, you see, they don't have the transitional movements between active and passive. And that's what we're after. It's one of the key things. You have to have it in vision and you have to have it in your muscles. I don't understand why there aren't more people out there saying, I know I was taught this. This isn't making sense to me. Why do I have one child that was born at 27 weeks, went home at 875 grams, and he's walking independently? Yes, with a lot of intervention, but yet I've got another 27-weeker who's max assist. That's what I have to offer every day. But the first thing you have to kick in, guys, with all of us, is the brain needs to know it can move better. And this is really one of the key deviations that most people have. Again, if I started putting in, oh, here, I got another ball. If I start putting in more, and again, look at if I put down here where they're at, where they're going. But you can see, look at that hit. right? Spastic CP, look at how much the system wants to go away from it. Same thing, you start suffering from high blood pressure. Same with diabetes. Your sugar wet viscosity weight at 80 sugars versus a 300 sugars, your blood's pretty darn heavy. Your circulatory system's taxed, your kidneys, you can go on and on. I get where the stresses are in the system, totally concur. But to find the solution to change the movement that needs to happen, I want you to understand that you can help someone move better. But you have to understand the sciences. Basing movement off of whether you're strong enough or you're too weak, you'll be having those conversations for the rest of your life. And that's not what movement's about. Little old ladies can go to the store just fine without core strength. But I have my other group, Gravity and Movement, that goes more with my book. You don't have to have read the book to really benefit if you want to understand where movement comes from within gravity. Biological movement. There's a difference between a rock and my hair follicle. Thank you for listening to me as always. Have a wonderful day. Bye.